Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. My guest today is Natasha Tynes, and I've been following her because she's engaged with the world of writing, and I don't know all that you're into, but so give us an idea because I think I just see you everywhere, and I see all this stuff going on, and I'm curious as to what you're doing and what your purpose is and that sort of thing.
Sure. Wow. What's my purpose? That's a very existential question. But I will, I will talk about what I do, which is so I'm a trained journalist. I worked as a journalist in different parts of the world, originally from the Middle East, and so worked all over the place for 25 years, and then 4 years ago. Almost actually five. I started my own company, my own like small media boutique, in which I focus on helping people publish their books. This can be done through two ways, and through either through book coaching or through ghostwriting. And my main focus is nonfiction and memoir. Although I published actually fiction, but I most of the people that I help publish are publishing their memoirs or like nonfiction books, and they come to me. I can either write the book for them, which is like from the like done for you kind of service, or done with you, which is they write the book and I coach them through it. So I like to call myself I'm the book finisher. So I help
Oh, that's good.
people finish their books. Yeah.
I,
So
I
yeah, that's about me.
I published my first book in 2018, and it's this book here.
Ah, I see it. The
And
circle
I
of
and I
impact.
used
Okay.
someone like you. I went through a group that helped me put it together, and it was an interesting experience. Mixed. It was mixed. I was very pleased with the outcome of the book, but how the whole marketing of it was a different story,
Yeah,
and
it's a different beast. Yeah.
it was challenging. And but I even with that, I enjoyed the process, and I've been continuing to write. And during the first 15 months of COVID, I wrote seven short books, published them myself.
Seven.
Seven short
Oh
books.
wow. Okay, that's a lot of
Probably the
books.
longest was about 15,000 words, so they were short. I mean, but they
Okay.
were very purposeful, long, basically long essays. And but one of the things that's curious to me is um, and how you talk to people who they'll come to you and I spent a year doing book events, when my first book was published, and people would come up to me and they'd say, I'd like to write a book. I want to write a book. I have a book in my head that I want to write. And I say, don't write it, just start writing. That was my answer to them. But what do you say to people who come to you and they've never written a book, and yet they think they have a book in their head that they want to write? They have something, they have the desire to put something down on paper and put it out in the public for public read. How do you approach them in that regard?
I think the fact that they have a book in them, that is the first start, the first step. And if you have a book in you, you can't let it go. You become actually possessed with the idea. And if you're in that state, congrats, that's the first step. The second step is you have to stop talking about wanting to write a book and actually start doing it. And it's like this, the one tip I would give, the best writing tip is basically glue your butt to the chair and write. And that is because people just talk about it and they don't do it. For me, I would tell them, if you want to accomplish this, you have to treat it like a job. You have to show up every day, rain on shine, and do not hide behind excuses or like I have a writer's block or whatever. Because the same thing, you don't feel like going to work, right? But you're not gonna say I have a worker's block or whatever. You just show up. And the same thing is when it comes to writing a book, is just showing up, and then having a structure and a plan, and think of it as a project, and you're the project manager. And by that I mean you can start by an outline, you can start small, you can set daily targets, you can set weekly targets, you can set milestones. For example, like if you're a project manager, you say, okay, the first milestone is the first 10,000 words. Do that, go celebrate, I don't know, go get a bottle of champagne or whatever. Reach the 20 second milestone, like 20 or 30,000 words. Reward yourself by like ordering sushi or whatever. And the point is, when you have the structure and you have the discipline and you have the mindset that this is an actual project, it's not this idea where you're an artist in a cabin and waiting for the inspiration. That's not the case. So that's what I would tell them.
I totally agree with you. I would, what I would say to people is, um, don't start writing sentences. Just write words down or phrases, and carry something around like a little notebook, a little book that, and you just every time you have a thought, you write it down, whatever the thought is, but just write it down.
Yeah, what I do is I use my phone, the voice memo,
Uh-huh.
and you can either use the voice memo or a tool called Otter, and you just talk to it all the time, and it can transcribe and you'll have the transcription. Take it and plug it into like a folder where where you dump all your ideas on the go, because ideas are fleeting and you have to capture them. Or this there was this
Oh.
poet Ruth Stone that would say, capture them by the tail before they flee and go to another writer. So
So
try
do you
to.
have do you have a pattern, you as a writer yourself, do you have a pattern of of a way you are that you always write what you're doing? And I'm curious as what's your pattern?
Yeah, yeah. So
Do you have
so
like a time of day or
well, I spend all my day writing because that's my job. So it's either for clients or for my own work. So I tell people to dedicate the time to write because they have like busy lives, and they have other jobs. My situation is completely different because I write nonstop, and that's my job. So it can be writing a client's book, that's, or it can be writing essays for my Substack or for my social media. Three, it can be writing for publications, which I do. So I still like do kind of journalist work where I send pieces to certain, so I like write book reviews, or sometimes I do like local events in my area. So that's another form of writing that I do. And then there's the creative writing, which is my books. And So I usually look at my calendar and I see, and I can write in between meetings, or so I'm now working on my third book, which is a children's book, and I finished the writing process. Now I'm working with the designer, and after he designs it, it'll be ready for publication. And then after that is done, I don't want to mix a lot of creative projects. I want to finish this, and then I want to go and continue another novel called The Building, which maybe more than halfway through it, and that would be my next project. But at least for this year, I want to finish the children's book, and I also might throw in another short nonfiction book in the mix, which is based because I talk a lot about it. I wrote a lot about it, which is about memoir ghostwriting, and it will be like an educational book, like maybe similar to your style, like a short book about how to ghostwrite memoirs or how to be a memoir ghostwriter. So yeah, so that's what I do.
I've had other ghostwriters on, and it's interesting how they talk about that experience of doing their interviews of the person that they're going to write the book for, and then they go off and write that, and they come back to them, and it's that interaction that's going on, and it sounds like it's very sometimes it can be um, very difficult to be able to work with someone. You're writing a book for them, but they have their own expectations, and my guess is that they don't always are clear about what their expectations are at the beginning, but as you begin to produce the work, then they'll begin to become clear about what they actually want. Is that an accurate
Yeah.
kind of picture of the way it works for a ghostwriter?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is to capture their voice. Capturing their voice is the most important thing.
Uh-huh.
And also the art of the interview. So you don't have to be Shakespeare if you want to be a memoir ghostwriter. You have to be a good journalist. You have to know how to interview them, get kind of the best stories out of them. And also, if they tell you something, you need to quiz them to get the emotions behind the story. So, for example, they can tell you, "My mom passed away last spring." And then you say, "Hey, hey, hey, wait a minute. Where was she? Where were you? What was her last words? How did you feel? What was the weather? What was the room like? The smell, the scent, all of that stuff." So, and that is your job as a ghostwriter, to get those memories and those feelings out of the person that you're working with. So, and the writing, eventually you can do the writing, but the core of your job is to get the best out of the person you're interviewing, and also capture their voice.
How do you approach I mean, you just provoked a thought in my mind is how do you approach being able to write in their voice? What is that? What is that? How do you do that? How do you do that?
Yeah, so how do I do that is basically I even have a free resource I give to everyone, is how to capture your client's voice. Is they start talking, and then there are different categories you can put every client in. So there is the joker, someone who always cracks jokes. There is the analytical person who always throw
Ah,
facts and graphs and whatever. There is the storyteller who will tell you, "I remember when my grandfather used to." So there are certain
these are archetypes.
archetype,
Yeah.
exactly, voice archetypes. And so you, by talking to them, one, and two, some of them have already published articles or published appearances. Some of them have, because most of them like they're accomplished people who want to leave like legacy books. So they either have like YouTube interviews, or they have blogs or articles. You gather all of this, and then you talk to them because the sessions are happening through Zoom, just like this. And then you realize what their voice, like for me, looking at you, I mean, I need more sessions. I think you might fall into the analytical voice. That would be your archetype, but I need more sessions with you to get there.
Yeah, it's yeah. Um, I have analytical questions, but also a storyteller, so it's interesting. It's what you're saying is really very interesting because when I wrote my first book and people began to read it, one of the best things, the best thing I've ever heard from any of those people who read the book was when I'm reading it, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, it's
And
the voice. It's capturing the
that's
voice. Exactly.
yeah, and
That's it.
I don't know what my voice is. I really don't, but it must be there. And so that raises the question of um how it, should we be using AI to write our books?
So AI can help you, like maybe with a first draft, or maybe help you edit what you wrote. But if you don't put your own voice in a book, people will know,
Mhm.
and readers are smart enough to know that this is AI, and it will lack its soul. It's like making a meal and forgetting to add spices or salt and pepper. And I know AI, like especially Claude, is getting really good, and you can train it to write in your voice, but there are certain things that only can be captured by humans because it's a human emotion. AI does not really know what it feels to like lose someone you love, and the grief you can only, and AI is trained on already written material about, let's say, describing grief, right? But if you want to be nuanced and write in a way that's not cliche, you have to be inventive in your writing. And
Hmm.
maybe
Yes.
your writing will train the next generation of AI. But let's say I want to describe grief, and AI would describe it, which will be fine. He would say like, and I felt, my soul was sucked in, and I did not want to get out of bed, and and probably that's what will AI describe, which is passable, which is publishable. But if you want to go from good to great, you're gonna come with a nuanced way of describing grief that has not been described before, and that what makes you stand out. So for me, I would say I would maybe describe grief in a way which is something as simple as, and I just sat on the sofa and I stared at the wall, and on the wall I could see a spider web, and I felt my eyes drift in the threads of the spider web. And 20 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed, an hour and 2 hours, and I was still staring. Whatever, I just came up with this. But this scene alone is a description of grief that AI cannot come up with. It
Yeah,
can't. It is.
I agree.
It's never been written before. I assume because I just invented it, but and it's these emotions, only a human being who's gone through grief or gone through the human experience can do that. So what AI can do can like clean it up a bit, maybe help you like move this up here and move this down. And I use AI all the time, but it is those nuanced description that would add the spice to your writing. And food with no spices is very bland. It's eatable, it's edible. You can eat it, you could publish it, but it's not a chef's kiss, and you need your book to be a chef's kiss.
I'm writing stuff every day, and I write a lot on Substack, and I feel like I'm always at war with Grammarly because it's wanting
Yeah,
me to have some kind of standardized expression of the English language,
yeah,
and I'm dismissing, you know, because it's it's not the way I talk. It's not the way I think, and that's I think that's one of the challenges. And I'm not sure if Grammarly can learn how to hear my way of writing, but it's one of those things that um, I face on a daily basis. It's not a big deal because I know I'm used to it now, but it is an interesting thing. I you'll find this interesting. Last fall, I began to write my first novel,
okay.
and having been writing uh, in somewhat professionally for 20 years, and all of it nonfiction. My first writing gigs were as a columnist for a newspaper, a business leadership, executive leadership columnist, and I was writing at first 500 words, per column, and then 700 words per column, and I did that for 5 years, and then that job went away, or that little job that went away, and so I've been writing ever since, and then finally another 10 years went by, and I wrote a book. Um, and then now I've been writing a novel, and what I'm surprised is how much fun it has been. And I'm at about 25,000 words, and almost all of that has come in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm on a roll, I'm leading to a question. So what I found was I'm starting with an idea, starting with a family, a complicated family, and a young man. When the story starts, he's 3 years old, but when the story really unfolds, he's 18, and I'm writing his story. It's his story, and and it's unfolding, and and I did, I was just letting the story take me where it was going to go. And I did that for about 12 chapters. And I reached a point, and I reached this last week when I realized I have to take charge of this story or I'm never going to finish it because there needs to be something that makes this have a more definitive shape and a more definitive direction and simply responding to what's happening in his life. And I
Yeah.
won't go into that at this point, but and so I spent a whole day sitting there just in a chair that's right there thinking, what is it that I want to say? What is it? Where does that want to go? What conflicts do I want to create in his life that allow this story to have some edge that people want to read it? That's the sort
Yeah.
of thing I was thinking. And by the end of the day, I had that very, very brief outline all set, and I sent it off to my agent. I have an agent, and she said, "Well, I think I know the publisher for you." So that process for me is unfolding. So and I am willing to work with a publisher. I'm not, I don't have to. It's not a given that I'm going to work with a publisher. I'm willing to do it on my own. I'm willing to do all the marketing. I'm doing do all the things that go into that. So I'm coming to the question is, so how does, if someone wants to write, say, a novel, what is it that you're recommending to them as to how they approach the construction of that thing? Because they're constructing a work of art that they're going to have to give to someone else to, say, edit it, and someone else to do the artwork, the layout, to do the marketing, all of that stuff. They're not going to do all of that, though some of us might. But how do you talk to with an author who has this idea and their idea is substantial enough that you see, okay, this idea for this novel really could work, and so this is how you talk to them.
Okay. Um, so with fiction, it's I would approach it differently than nonfiction. With nonfiction, I tend to be more kind of a project manager with an outline and everything is mapped
Right.
out. With nonfiction, while you maintain the discipline and the routine of writing every day, not all the time you know how it starts and how it ends, and you don't even know how many chapters because, as you said, the story takes you. So, for example, my novel here, They Called Me Wyatt, it started as a dream. I had dreamt that I somebody pushed me off the roof of a building and I got reincarnated and I woke up in the body of a 3-year-old boy in Seattle. And
I like that.
so that was, and I could not stop thinking about it. And so I wrote it as a short story. And I had a writer's critique group that we used to meet us pre-COVID. We used to meet and like downtown and discuss our. That was before Zoom and everything, so we used to meet in person. And they told me, "Listen, Natasha, there's a lot to unpack here. Why don't you expand it as a novel?" And hence and came the idea of my first novel. And all I had was this dream. And then based on that dream, I built the world, right? And the more I wrote, the more things started revealing themselves. What's her name? Julia Cameron, in her book, the Artist Way, she says that she like writes every day to cross to the other side. And it's like some sort of a spiritual experience where you reach an elevated level of consciousness that you won't be able to reach it until you're so immersed in the story. And it is very spiritual. It's out of this world experience where the characters tell you what to do. So
Yeah, I
it's a
totally
completely
agree.
different vibe. Yeah.
Who was your inspiration for all this? Where did you get the? I mean, you were a journalist first, but how where did your inspiration? Where was the influence that brought you into this world?
So, since I was really, really young, I loved to read. And my parents tell me that I read really early, like I was a very early reader. And of course, I was reading in my native language, which is Arabic. So, and because I grew up in Jordan, right? And
Uh-huh.
I would just read and read nonstop to the degree that my my mom would yell at me, "Stop reading! You're gonna ruin your eyes." She was right. I,
I've heard
I,
that.
I ruined my eyes eventually. She was right, as moms are always are, and and I remember like if I go on a like trip when I was 16, I remember I went on to Lebanon with my cousins, and I had some money saved up. So my mom was like, show me what you bought from Lebanon," because that was like Lebanon. You'd go, you it was like we wanted to buy like fancy stuff from Beirut. I was back in maybe the 80s or 90s, early 90s. And so my mom opens my suitcase to like she wanted to see all the clothes or the shoes that I bought from like fancy Beirut, and she looks. I was like, "What is this? It's all books. You wasted all the money on books." And I remember when I was in elementary school, I had a teacher who once told the whole class about my essay, and she said if there was a grade above 10 out of 10, I would have given it to Natasha. And that sentence alone kind of reaffirmed my passion for and my some sort of like when you ask me what's your purpose, that and I realized that is my as the French say, my raison d'être, my reason to be. And I never stopped. I started writing since I was young. I started publishing in newspapers when I was 19. And 49 now, so it's 30 years of publishing and writing. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever stop.
I'm so are you still a book hound?
Oh yeah, don't tell my husband. There's 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 a there's a lot of books around this house, but yeah,
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. And for me it's I'm buying stuff that in areas that I have no knowledge and I want to learn about it.
yeah,
Very curious about other people
yeah.
and what they're doing. And yeah, it's funny. Um, my son is one of my inspirations. My oldest son, Troop, and he's 40. And when he was 12, so this is in the mid 90s, and at that point in time, our family had one computer. And I used it most of the time. And there wasn't, I mean, the internet was not what we know it today. So, I mean, we had a set of Encyclopedia Britannica. That was our internet.
Yeah.
And we homeschooled our kids. And he came to his mother and me and said, I'd like my own computer. And so we found him because he wanted to write. And we found him a used computer. And he started writing. And he was about 11, 12 years old at this point, and he was going to teach himself how to write novels. And over the next 2 years, spending 2 to 3 hours a day, he wrote an alternative history of World War II.
Oh wow. How old
And
was he?
he was 12, 13 years old when he
Oh
finished this thing.
jeez. Yeah, because didn't have TikTok or Instagram.
No,
Yeah.
none of that. No, this is all on
Exactly.
his. This is all on him.
Exactly.
And it was 175,000 words.
Wow.
And what he was trying to do was learn how to write dialogue and to write battle scenes. And his story was, and I think it's a brilliant story, and I think he should take this thing and edit it down to, 75,000 words and publish it. But it was a story where Hitler is removed from office before the Second World War. There's a coup, and so Stalin becomes the focal point of the Second World War, and he becomes, he replaces Hitler as the focus of evil, and so the story is wrapped around non-attempts to assassinate Stalin because it's clear that the war will not end until Stalin is dead,
Hmm.
and so it's called the Non-Lives of Comrade Stalin, and it's it's not. it's not great, but it's not bad either. He never wants anyone to ever read it, you know. But I think I have the only print copy of it. But what it did was it taught him how to have that focus and that discipline of writing. And so he, maybe 3 years ago, he published his first book, and he's writing a series of novels about one family from a farm family from here in North Carolina, spanning the 1840s to the present day, and and so he's ambitious. You know, he's also got a regular job where he makes, you know, he's not going to make any money off of what he's writing, but he's certainly writing in a manner that I think is very commit. I commend him for it because he's what I guess what I would say that when I read the first book that he published, I was really surprised by how good he was at character at creating characters. And I think that's one of the challenges that every novel writer has is that they have to create these people that are believable and that they want either to be loved or appreciated or hated or whatever. But that's the challenge of creating characters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, wow, I'm impressed. He's 11 doing all of that. Oh my God. I mean, trust me, 11-year-old kids do not do that now. They're too distracted by
Oh,
all the
that's right.
media. Yeah, and then yeah, they're not gonna do that. So yeah, wow. I commend you for raising such a committed and talented child.
Well, you just give them the tools and let them go and
Exactly.
encourage them. And and I think that's true for a lot of children because I'm interested in young people. I always have been. Worked with young people, both in high school and college over the years, and I'm interested in what they think and and would love to see them do more writing, not not TikTok videos, but rather actually do writing because I
Yeah,
think they have something to say to us that is worth reading.
yeah,
That's what I'd say.
yeah, for sure.
Do you have children?
I do. I have three. I have an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old twins. So I have two boys and a girl.
And do they like reading like you do?
Uh, they used to. Now the teenagers are like distracted by other stuff. But I still read to the younger one, and he's actually part of a kids book club, which is nice. It was created by some of the moms in my neighborhood, and so we have to, so he we read the book and we discuss it with his friends, and one of the moms usually leads a discussion, so it's fun. So we go to the library. So I do my best, and they see me read all the time. So hopefully that would encourage them to read more.
So I know that you do a couple of different things. One is you work with authors to help them create their books. But there's another facet of your work where you're training people or you're doing seminars and things like that. Talk some about what you do there because I know you got something coming up on.
Yeah,
Um,
so basically I do also webinars and like our master classes, and so for my Substack paid subscribers, they get those master classes for free, and for anyone who's not a Substack a paid member, they can just pay $17, and we pick the theme based on what my readers or my followers want. So I do like a poll, and based on the responses I see what they prefer, and then so this month is gonna be the art of the memoir, and it's gonna be this Monday at noon, and I've been really working hard to have the all the material ready for everyone on Monday, and I'd love it if you can join us. But yeah, so that's one of the things that I do. I also run often on cohorts there's a platform called Maven, and it kind of changed dramatically now with AI, and now everyone's teaching some AI this and AI that. But I did a couple of courses there. And what else? Yeah, and every once in a while, also, I get contacted by media training organizations. So last year, I trained Ukrainian journalists on the art of pitching to newspapers. I also trained Jordanian journalists on digital media marketing. And I also do podcast training since I run my podcast, and these things came organically. I started getting questions like, "How do I start a podcast?" So I do also podcast coaching one to one. So yeah, so that's the training part.
Do you see grassroots journalism as something that's growing and becoming more significant?
I mean, yeah, but like if you wanna define what is grassroots journalism, is a person who posts a video and let's say what happened in Minneapolis and puts it on TikTok. I mean, you might not call him a grassroots journalist, but that is for me. It's type of grassroots journalism. Is like you were at the right time at the right moment, the right scene, and you captured this and you reported what you saw. So that is like they used to call them like citizen journalists, grassroots journalists, whatever.
Right.
But now like I guess they're that the everyone now has a camera in their pocket. Everyone can document what happened, and everyone has the ability to publish it to a big audience. And I think the difference between, if you want to call them like a TikToker and a professional journalist, is that journalist is trained in the ethics of journalism in theory, and so that should so the journalist would know to double check the facts before publishing anything, getting two sources, making, these are some of the basic kind of ethics that a journalist goes through either by doing the job or by receiving the training or by going to school. So that is the difference, and that's where I think we need the role of a professional journalist, because they can do the double checking, the sourcing, and all of the training that they get. But yeah, I mean,
So,
it's
so we could
yeah,
be making a distinction here between someone who is, say, wanting to tell the story of what's going on in their neighborhood or in their community, and then
correct,
someone who is has a particular agenda in wanting to tell that story.
correct,
They would be, I
correct,
would call them an activist journalist, they're,
correct. Yeah,
and
yeah.
being able to determine which is which is
Yeah.
interesting. I was on a call with a group 2 weeks ago, and one of the members of this group was talking about the things going on in Minneapolis, and she felt like she was being gaslighted, and my response to her was, "Well, of course you are, but you're being gaslighted by both sides. There's an
Yeah.
activism that's going on both sides, and the question is, how do you discern?" And I think this is why we have these kinds of conversations. How do you discern what's really the story and what is really being a story that's being fabricated for you because they want you to support their cause or whatever it is, or they want you to stop doing something that that they want you to stop doing. So it's
So it depends on the medium that you're following, or the news outlet. So again, a professional news outlet in theory would get two sides of the story. So let's say something happened in Minneapolis and somebody have the video. A reporter would put the video, say what happened, and would also go get the response from ICE to get their side of the story. And the reporter should not try to lean towards this or that. He would put the facts and let the readers decide and make their own conclusion. And that's what a professional journal, and that's what should a professional media outlet do in theory, and say, okay, this is what happened.
yeah.
A bystander saw the video. Here is the video. Here is one side of the video, and then a reporter would go try to see different angles of the video try to talk to both sides, more bystanders, also to ICE, see, and then try and be as objective. I know it's hard to be objective, especially when emotions are very high, but that's how you're trained as a journalist. And then you put it and let the readers decide. Don't gaslight the readers. Let them decide. And at least that's how I
Yeah,
was trained as a journalist. Yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I have, I mean, I've been watching this stuff for a long time, so I'm an old man. So yeah, I'm used to the propagandistic side of journalism that's out there and has been, I mean, since I was a child. And you know, I so it's I think it's what is needed is we have, and this is why we're talking. People just need to be discerning about what they're reading and what they hear,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not take everything at face value, but actually say, well, and this is what I did with my children. They would, and I started this when they were young, and I said they would say, well, why, what's this? What does this mean? Why is this happening? Or I said, well, why do you think it's happening? What do you think is going on? What do you see happening? And because I didn't want to just give them answers, I wanted them to actually discern. I wanted them to think. And
Yeah.
I don't know what extent that meant that my son became a writer, but I think it did turn all my three children into more critical thinkers who could separate truth from fact. I mean, truth from fact. Boy, that's a boy,
Fact from lies or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
truth from fiction, and be able to say this is where I stand on this, and
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
and they don't always agree with one another, so it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love what you're doing, and I think it's great, and I hope that more people um, find you because I think the more assistance that people get for writing whatever it is, the more likely that they will get it published, but there'll also be more people reading. And I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting that there's this explosion of wanting to write. At the same time, there's this kind of drop in reading. And I don't think it's a given that it's going to stay that way. I think the more people write, the more people are going to read. And I've had a number of authors on the show, and and it's very interesting how they go about why they're writing, and what they're doing, and the creativity that they're bringing to us just remarkable. I'm just stunned, and I just feel like I'm a small guy on a big planet, standing next to these people whose creativity and the way they're articulating and a lot of these are, as it turns out, a lot of these are poets that I'm interviewing, and so I think you're in a great niche, and I wish you well because um, I think the more people can express themselves and go through the discipline of actually writing something, they will learn better what they actually think than maybe what their emotions will tend to push them towards in a moment of anxiety or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me. I enjoyed our chat, and I especially hearing about what your son did when he was 11. That was mind blowing. And I'll see you on Substack. I'm
Yes.
always there.
So send me all anything you want to put in the show notes, and send
Sure.
me a
Yeah.
picture, and then we'll post this up. Um, don't recall exactly when you're, but it's not it's going to be within a couple of weeks, I think.
No, it's on
Uh,
Monday. It's on Monday. So if you don't have time to post this
yeah,
up, it's
this
fine. Yeah.
this won't post until the 16th of the month. So sorry.
Yeah, so just put a link to my website and my Substack, and
Yeah, well,
that's it.
I'll
It's
I'll
fine.
put something out on note,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. Be
and I
fine.
wish you well, and I
Thank
thank you
you.
for being with us today, and I thank you all for watching. I will say to you what I've said to dozens of people over the years. If you have a thought in your head that you feel like has some value that you want to share, um, get your little journal and start writing it down. because at some point when you'll start writing sentences and then you'll start writing paragraphs, and all of a sudden you'll see that you have this book that is emerging in your mind, and at that point uh, you've made the choice to become an author. And I think if you can become a published author, it's even better. And obviously, you have help here if you need it. So I
Thank
thank
you
you for
very much.
watching,
Thank you
and I
very
thank
much,
you,
Ed.
Tasha, for being here. And we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Bye bye.
Sounds great. Thank you. Bye bye.